Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fishin, the podcast where we discuss Magic's most competitive tribe and help the whole community become better legacy players. I'm Kody. I am the only host on this episode of Fishin, a Merfolk Podcast. You can find me as Not Kody Smith on Twitter, as well as my usual co-hosts, who both are busy with other things. Dorian at Crinkle Biscuit on Twitter, and Matthew as Matthew Cotto 8. So that's where you can find them. I have a great guest with me on this episode. We're going to be discussing. We actually haven't done a legacy matchup yet, and so I'm really excited to do that this week. I have a great member of the Magic community here in the South OKC area. He's been on the Brainstorm Brewery discussing his love for the basic mountain. He's widely known in the misprint community as the collector of misprinted mountains. And I would like to welcome to the show Travis Nance. How are you doing, Travis?
Pretty good, Kody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So we're discussing the matchup against Legacy Burn, which is a deck that you're kind of known for in the area to be playing. So where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me in most places as Bearded Skeptic. Includes my Twitch that I've been streaming on most Thursdays, twitch.tv/Bearded Skeptic. On my Twitter that I will be hopefully reopening soon from being locked. Instagram, all that fun stuff.
And we have hosted you on occasion on Twitch. I think you're just on our auto host thing, I hope.
Yes, it's been lovely.
No, I definitely may need to actually enlist your help. My PC has been frying itself as of late, and I have owned a Mac since 2010. So so this is my first PC in over a decade. So I may need your help to figure out what I am doing wrong in streaming.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
I got
that
you. Just give me a buzz.
oh yeah, man. I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so you can find us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all those places, Facebook as FishcastMTG. You can find us at patreon.com/fishcastmtg, which is a great place to support the show. It definitely helps us. And at the $2 level, you get the show a week early and ad free, or a few days early and ad free, I suppose, since we record the week that we release the episode. But just giving us $2 a month is more than we've gotten in ads in our lifetime. So I definitely appreciate that support. You can also go to inkedgaming.com and use the code FishCast10 at checkout, or use our affiliate link in the show notes of this to get 10% off your order and kick back 10% to your buddies over at Fishcast to help us do magic-related things. And you can also, the last thing that I have to pimp is you can go to cartamajigs.com/collections/fishcastmtg to order your Fishin' a Merfolk Podcast exclusive art Merfolk tokens, and they're beautiful art by Ishton. Ishton on Twitter is fantastic. Please check him out. He's got lots of great Merfolk art, as well as just general MTG fan art. It's really wonderful to see. He also has a webcomic that's really good about a set of planeswalkers, and I love reading his fan art. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We don't have a new patron this month or this week, so I asked Travis to pick the random Merfolk. Travis, which random Merfolk did you pick?
We chose the sex number 69.
Woo, the pot number.
Yes.
So random Merfolk 69. Nice. Is Herald of Secret Streams, which is 3 and a blue, from a very recent set, Ixalan, and it is a Merfolk warrior and a 2/3. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. So Herald of Secret Streams seems like a fine card for Commander, which Travis, I know that you know, I'm sure that you have a few Commander decks. I've seen you. I think I've played a game of Commander with you at some point. But this does not seem like something that would fit very much into a Merfolk Legacy deck, and we're discussing the Burn versus Legacy matchup tonight. I don't see this really fitting in the Merfolk matchup.
No, but by the time it comes down, it's no longer relevant in fast formats like Legacy and Modern. It was great when it was in Standard. It was really a powerhouse and great for neutralizing, board stalls. I will say that the Herald of Secret Streams is possibly the patron saint of unknown podcasts and Twitch streams, so we must give reverence where it's due.
No, and I could see like in like a white, blue, black token +1/+1 counters deck. For that, I don't know who's making that deck in Commander, but this would be that
like
card.
Bant counters matter or something like that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah, like if you're running like if you're running all the counter doublers and the token doublers, and you're just putting counters on everything every turn, then you drop this guy and you swing out and kill everybody in one turn. Sure, but Legacy, despite being a slower format than most people think it is, I don't think that this is fast enough for Legacy.
It doesn't end games because the rest of your Merfolk deck is not putting counters on anything really, in the Legacy matchup anyway. In blue-green Standard during its heyday, yes, but in Legacy you're not getting any benefit from it really from its ability, and as a 4-drop, if it's a 4-drop in a fair deck in Legacy, it needs to make a major difference on the field. And, in a lot of cases, I'm seeing people not even running the, which one's the one that drops all the elementals? That guy.
Master of Waves.
Yes, I'm not even seeing many of those anymore, which will punish you in the burn matchup.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't think in Legacy that the Master of Waves is a very purposeful card in Legacy. But again, to bring it back to Herald of Secret Streams, just for the moment at least, just 4 mana is so much to pay in Legacy. I mean, not to say that games don't go well past turn 4, but especially in the Burden matchup, we're not wasting time with a 4-drop.
You're not taking your vial up to 4 either.
Definitely not. Definitely not in Legacy. So Herald is great in Commander, but pretty much everywhere else, unfortunately. I guess we have yet to see if it's good in Historic, because Historic is definitely a thing that can be played on Arena, and time will only tell if Herald if Herald really makes it there.
Or if Historic goes the way of what was the format that died so quickly?
Frontier.
Frontier.
I actually had a lot of fun playing Frontier. I think you were at that tournament too that DZ ran.
Yes. They streamed me getting my butt kicked with I was on Jeskai Ascendancy tokens, and I got my butt kicked by somebody. I think it was some combo deck. It was really embarrassing.
Yeah, I was actually on stream for that event as well. I played I called it Teamer-ish, and it was everything but black, and it basically, I called it Teamer-ish Scapeshift, because it played the card that returned all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it basically just took advantage of landfall triggers. It played a lot of the Ascendancies, or not the Ascendancies, the from Zendikar, the lands matters enchantments, and it played the Herald that made enchantments cheaper, and it was just a dumb deck. Like and of course it played for Siege Rhino, because Siege Rhino is Siege Rhino, because Siege Rhino is just that good, really. But yeah, so Travis, to move into the main topic, part of the reason that I brought you on is not only are you a major burn player in the local Legacy metagame, you also play Merfolk.
Yeah, I don't pilot it all that often, but I like it as a deck. So I initially built it in Modern and played it for a bit. It was kind of a pet deck for a little while. And then I sat down and did the math and realized that I could convert it over to Legacy fairly inexpensively. And this was even before True Name Nemesis got reprinted. So you've got an even easier time now. And Chalice reprints have really helped as well. So, I converted it over to Legacy, played it a few times. So I at least have a general idea of what you're supposed to be doing with it.
Yeah, and obviously, when you're playing Legacy in a local metagame, obviously you only have you have your local players. Now, I've been out of the local scene for a little bit just because of when I have my daughter and stuff, and I just can't get out on Friday nights like I used to. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is you have in a local metagame, you have your burn player, you have your guy. So Jamie is our guy that has most decks. Because he's that guy, and his wife is great.
We have
a
few of those.
Yeah, we have a few of those, and there's generally people you can go like, oh, this guy's playing Death and Taxes. This guy's playing Teamer Food Chain. That sort of thing. Now, you've been playing Burn for a little while, both in Modern and in Legacy. Is that correct?
I've been playing. So this deck is based. So Burn is based on essentially an archetype that kind of popped up in 1996 called Sly, and it was really the first deck that relied on utilizing min-maxing your mana curve rather than trying to go bigger and better in the late game. So I really started playing it in probably mid 1997. And somewhere around then, it wasn't the same deck that I was playing, but it was a similar enough deck that I was playing. Ended up getting a second at the World Champs. So this archetype has been around, and it's different cards, but it's the same deck. It's not playing Mog Fanatic and Jackal Pup anymore because we now have, Goblin Guide and Monastery Swiftspear, which are just... We've gotten direct upgrades in just about every slot except for Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning. So I've been on this basic archetype since '97.
Burn. I always refer to it as a deck that has a low floor, but a very high ceiling. It's like
yes.
The basic idea of it is very simple. It's like, okay, I need to get my opponent's life total down as quickly as possible. And like you said, the slide decks were very about low mana cost creatures and burn spells, and that's kind of what's transitioned into Modern and Legacy Burn. Like you said, it's the founding father of those decks. Really, they're very similar decks, honestly.
We've got a few more sophisticated tools. We've got Grim Lavamancer. We've got Eidolon of the Great Revel, which really brought it back as viable in the Theros block and really, made it able to play in just every format.
Yeah, and obviously, every set, every deck looks for cards that they can go like, this is the card that we're adding. We've had a few cards here and there that like you said, Eidolon of the Great Revel from Theros was, I think, probably the biggest addition to both Modern and Legacy Burn in a long time. Oh, yeah. Maybe Lava Dart in Modern is kind of the newest addition from Modern Masters, but so Modern and Legacy.
We've also recently. Oh, sorry. We've also recently picked up those spectacle cards. Which out of the recent Ravnica sets.
Oh, right.
And some number of those, I think, is correct in both Modern and Legacy. Right now in Legacy, it's just 3 light up the stage for me, but I'm running a couple of Skewer the Critics up in Modern as well.
Right. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about those because those are great cards because they reward you for doing what you're already doing. And obviously like Skewer the Critics. So actually, I kind of actually ran an experiment for a minute with Sword Point Diplomacy, which is 2 and a black, and you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and your opponent can let you add cards to your hand or force you to discard them, but they're dealt damage for each card they discard. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, this is doing what burn needs. It's refilling your hand, or it's dealing them damage. And so like, oh, well, this could be that, but Light Up the Stage honestly did that way better than Sword Point Diplomacy could without adding another color.
You don't have to add the color. Also, anytime that you give someone a choice of mode, it's not going to benefit you. They're not going to give you lightning bolts, or they're not going to give you exquisite firecraft and then pay 3 life for you to discard a card.
Well, but see, but so in my mind,
or to discard a land, rather.
But see, in my mind, that's like, oh, well, you can either give me lightning bolt or you can take 3 damage, which is lightning bolt.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was like, okay, yeah, like, it's like, okay, obviously they're going to give me lands. They're never going to force me to discard lands, which in Burn, obviously getting more lands past 3 is really negligible. But they're going to go, oh, do I want him to have lightning bolt? Well, I'm going to take the 3 anyway. You know, and so it's like, do I give it to him and he has that, or do I just take the 3 because I'm going to take 3 anyway? And then, you know, that's sort of that thing. But like I said, Light Up the Stage is a much better version of that.
Yeah, because you can cast it for a single red instead of 3 every time. And anytime you're adding a 3-drop to a burn deck, it really better be a game changer.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said, Sword Point Diplomacy came out before Skewer the Critics and Light Up the Stage. So like my point of view was, you know, if you're casting a 3-drop in Burn, you've hit the top of your curve anyway. And it's like, okay, well, you can either give me what I want, or you can take, you know, 6 damage and give me a land. You know, like and like that's kind of what Burn is okay with. It's like, either give me things that let me burn you, or you get burned. And again, I'm not a burn player. I'm not so don't judge me too harshly. But I think, like I said, Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics both do have a spot in both Modern and Legacy.
Yeah, and Sword Point Diplomacy, to your credit, that is a thing that Burn has wanted for a bit, is the ability to kind of chain things, the ability to come from a dead point to actually having some more gas. And that combination of Light Up the Stage in some number and the Horizon lands, Fiery Islet and Sunbaked Canyon in some number, have really put some wind in the sails of Burn recently. And you can kind of see it from, you know, we got a top 4 at GP Atlanta. I'm not 100% on board with his list, but we Burn players as a almost as a rule will fiercely defend our own list opinions.
Yeah, no, and Merfolk is a community that very fiercely defends its own opinions as well. So believe me, that's not a Burn only.
I don't care what you won. I still think this card is better.
Yeah, and Merfolk, honestly. So the thing about Merfolk is, despite being a blue deck, Merfolk doesn't draw a lot of cards. Obviously, you know, we have Silvergill Adept, which honestly has kind of lost a little bit of favor in Modern, but kind of is played in Legacy just as a begrudging, it's card advantage. And
it's a solid tempo play. It's fine.
Yeah, again, it's not bad. Like, nobody's going to say Silvergill Adept is a bad card, especially on this podcast. You will get booted from this podcast if you say Silvergill Adept is a bad card. However, that doesn't mean that, like Alex Kessler, when we had him on the show a few weeks ago, he basically said Merfolk is a green deck disguised as a blue deck.
Yeah.
it's a bunch of creatures pumping each other up and swinging with like some sort of evasion, which in our case is island walk. Obviously, Legacy is filled with islands, not just regular islands, but tropical islands and volcanic islands and the like. And it's very common to face up against a deck that is like, oh, I just have native unblockability, and that's okay. Obviously, Burn is the exception in this matchup. Burn and probably Death and Taxes are the most common non-blue decks in Legacy. So now, I obviously when you're at a GP or a high level SCG event or something like that, you're not going to know who you're pairing up with generally.
Right.
So if let's say we are sitting down for, across the table over at Wizards, and we're not Wizards Seattle. We're talking about
Wizards Asylum in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Wizards Asylum. So like, let's say we're playing a game and we sit down across from each other over at Wizards Asylum. You're obviously going to assume that I'm playing Merfolk, and I'm going to assume that you're playing Burn.
Yeah.
Not to typecast each other, but we're kind of the Legacy sticks in the mud of like, this is what I play.
You play the numbers. Some people are usually going to be playing the deck that they're most familiar with, which is usually correct.
Once I unfurl my Fishin and Merfolk podcast playmat, it's generally pretty straightforward what I'm doing here.
You're not keeping any secrets.
Yeah, I'm what's funny is I told the guy up at the last paper event that I played at. I unfolded my Fishin and Merfolk podcast playmat, and he was like, "Oh, I bet you're playing Merfolk," and I said, "No, I'm playing Delver." And so like I went like Island Aether Vial, and he was like, "Oh, that's weird. I didn't know they played Aether Vial in Delver." And it was like, "Oh, sweetie."
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, so like, let's say we're sitting across from each other. Now, I will say that I have lost to a little girl playing Burn in Legacy, and this is a very capable little girl, and we even discussed
so have I
it.
in the mirror.
Yeah, no, and she's a great Magic player. Now, so like, let's say you and I are sitting across from each other, and we're, we kind of have this idea like, oh, I know what this guy's on. So like, opening 7, we roll, and you get to go. I mean, obviously Burn gets to go first because that's generally how it works. What are your thoughts about playing against Merfolk initially?
So there's 3 ways to play Burn, and 2 of them are pretty much the same. A lot of people kind of assume that Burn is just like a linear fast deck, and it can be if you don't interact, but a good pilot is going to recognize what he's up against. And so in the case of I'm going up against a fair deck, my decision tree changes pretty drastically. Much like if I'm going up against elves, in the same way, I know that if you get to critical mass, you're just going to swing and kill me. I'm not going to race you if you can keep lords on the board. So at that point, Burn becomes basically a versatile control deck. I'm trying to land and keep creatures out. I'm probably not going to try to trade with you. I'm going to try to make you trade stupidly. I'm going to try to make you block Swift Spears and then pump them so that you have to chump block. I'm going to remove lords, things like that to try to take away the value from what, because your whole thing is you've got lords, you've got evasion. I'm going to try to take the value out of that proposition for you. That's my job in this, and then just try to make a Goblin Guide or a Swift Spear go all the way. Against you, another really good one to stick is Grim Lavamancer. I'm going to try to milk that for all it's worth and pop your critters one by one and make you play off the top of your deck and unable to really swing effectively.
No, I've also said this already, but Merfolk is not a deck that really draws cards, which is given a benefit to both Burn and Merfolk in the Horizon lands that we've gotten, which I definitely recommend playing some number of. I don't know if Burn just plays the full 4. Many Merfolk players have played 4. It's just generally like in Legacy especially, there's a definite value to having that extra just draw. Because they don't take up a spell slot. It's like, oh, in the worst case, this taps for blue and I lose 1 life, which against Burn matters, but against every other deck pretty much doesn't matter.
Well, you are going to be running some number of non-basics already, so it's going to be a harder decision for Merfolk because, as we're talking about this matchup, if you're replacing islands with Horizon lands, that's going to matter whenever it comes to price of progress out of the board.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely wanted to touch on what is the mana base of your current modern or your current Legacy deck look like? I mean, where are we at? I mean, I'm sure most of it consists of basic mountains, but has any as you're known as the mountain Travis the Mountain Nance? How many mountains are you running? And I mean, has Wasteland come back a lot since the banning of oh geez, what's the name of that elf? I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Deathrite.
Deathrite, yeah, Deathrite Shaman. So I know Wasteland has kind of made a resurgence since the banning of Deathrite. What is your basic or what does your land package look like?
So how it is right now is slightly different from what my optimal build is, because aside from collecting a lot of misprint mountains, I also am working on a 100% misprint burn deck. So currently I have a couple of suboptimal cards because it's kind of hard to find. Yeah, it's kind of hard to find the most optimal cards. I'm about, I think, 12 cards short of being 100%. So, instead of 4 Smash to Smithereens, I've got 2 Smash to Smithereens, 2 Abrades because I have them in misprints. But speaking on the optimal build, which I have in front of me, I think 3 to 4 Sunbaked Canyon is probably correct.
No, that's the white red.
Or Fiery Islet. Right now, I'm going with Sunbaked Canyon right now in the idea that at some point it may become important to mess around with some sideboard options in another color. Maybe even throw in some fetches and a single duel. I want to leave that open in the future, but I think Sunbaked Canyon is a correct one because white sideboard options are basically better than blue sideboard options.
Yeah,
I've
like
already
Lightning
got
Helix
and I don't need back to basics.
Why not? No, I'm kidding. But I mean, obviously, like Lightning Helix is definitely a very viable sideboard option in modern burn. So definitely, like I think you're correct in leading in the white, at least for the burn deck.
And as of right now, it doesn't matter. Either of them are fine. I think 3 to 4 is probably correct in Legacy. You're not running any other non-basics, so I don't see any reason not to run the full 4. You'll eat a little bit of damage, which might make a difference in a mirror maybe, but I don't think it'll make as much difference as drawing a lightning bolt and then casting it.
Yeah, you know what's funny is in one of the winter duels at DZ, I borrowed a burn deck in Legacy, and he from a mutual friend, and he was like, "Oh, well, you just need these fetches, and you'll be fine." And I was like, "All right, I've got these fetches. Cool. I'll just fold them in." And I did not know how to play burn very well. Again, I definitely say that burn is a good, like I said, it has a good low floor. Like so,
yeah.
the basics.
Not a big barrier to entry financially or intellectually, but yeah, it does have a very high ceiling.
But to be a good burn player, yeah, it's like you have to be up there, and that's why I respect your opinion enough to bring you on and be like, hey,
Thank you.
like no, Travis,
I have won a couple of dual lands.
no, you have definitely, but it again, it's it's a deck that can win tournaments. It's a deck that again, like you said, it's top four recently in a GP, and it's one of those things that Burn is a respectable deck, and a lot of people shrug it off, and I don't want any of these Merfolk players listening to the show to go, oh, I'm playing against Burn, so it's an easy win. Nah, dog.
If you forget about it, if you don't prepare for it, if you don't know the matchup, you're going to find yourself at 3 with a lightning bolt on the stack.
Yeah, and so that's so going past the land package and the basics of Burn. I want to discuss the matchup. So the biggest thing about Burn is the number 3. And
it's a combo deck where you try to assemble the number 3 7 times.
Yeah, definitely. And being born on the 21st of January, I'm highly attuned to the number 21. But as a Merfolk player, you're trying to assemble some number of lords and some number of other Merfolk and some number of force of wills to stop the burn player from doing what they're trying to do. So your options are split between, oh, I need to protect X creature versus, oh, I need to protect myself from X damage from lightning bolt or from chain lightning or from Price of Progress. And obviously Price of Progress would be a sideboard card. I don't know many burn decks that run Price of Progress main board.
It totally depends on the meta. 4 of either Price of Progress or Flame Rift is probably correct. And it totally depends on what the rest of the meta looks like. So if you've got a lot of Delver decks, a lot of check pile decks, you're going to see more Price of Progress in the main. Recently, we've seen a lot of single colored decks and other decks that just will only need one non-basic in play, and they'll play around it otherwise. So right now I'm running 4 Flame Rift, but that's good for fair decks.
Yeah, and obviously, like, when you're talking about a community that has a lot of newer legacy players, it's probably not as correct to run Price of Progress. Obviously, when I started playing Legacy, I played mono white soldiers, which was fun because nobody expected it. I've hard casted Night of the Watch, the 6 mana. The 6 mana soldier lord that puts 3 1/1s into play, which is hilarious, number 1. And number 2, nobody ever expects that sort of garbage in a legacy tournament. But it like you said, it's meta dependent. So keeping your non-basic to basic land count is important, but the biggest thing is when you're playing against Burn, you have to kind of be careful about your Aether Vials, and you have to be careful about your creature count, because in Burn, obviously they can just go to the head and they can use their creatures like Goblin Guides and Taylor Swiftspear to kind of keep you checked down just a little bit. Obviously, because turn 1 they go Goblin Guide, that definitely may draw you a card or two, but that 2 to 4 to 6 damage that you take really matters against Burn, because Burn, at least in my mind, I want to get you to the top of your deck as fast as possible.
Yeah, and if I've already gotten you for 4 out of a Goblin Guide or anything 3 or above, I'm totally fine with trying to force you to trade. That's beneficial for me because I've already gotten the use out of it. And you mentioned playing your vials carefully. The position that I'm going to try to put you in is playing you against yourself, second guessing yourself on, should I go ahead and pop this Lord into play, or is he going to bolt something I want in response, where I want you to be on the back foot. I want you to not play something that you could play, take you off your game plan for one more turn, because that's what I'm going to need to draw the other bolt to do it all to your face. So, your fledgling Merfolk players might not think about that line of play, and they might, okay, before my turn, I'm going to put the Lord of Atlantis into play. Okay, well, in response to that, I'm going to pop your other Lord and then pop this Lord, or whatever it might be. Hit your other Lord with my Grim Lavamancer, and now I can pop this one with something else this turn or next. That way you're not going to be able to swing big. You might have to hold back so that I can't swing for lethal on the next turn. And your more experienced Merfolk players, I'm relying on you to second guess yourself and try to convince yourself that I do have, a bolt and a Searing Blood in hand, and that if you do make the before my turn play, that you're going to end up paying for it and not being able to swing for lethal.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess, the similar, like you said earlier, where people assume like, oh, burn, you just kill everything. You kill everything and then you burn them into the face and that's it. That's really not how Merfolk, that's not how burn works. It's Merfolk is not it's not an aggro deck. It's like you have to be very careful about how you play out your threats, and especially with against burn, having Aether Vial as an option to put a creature into play. Guess what? Burn can respond to an Aether Vial activation. And so, like, you don't even need to see what I'm going to put into play, because what I'm going to put into play is likely a Lord to try and put my creatures outside of burn range. And you go, oh no, I'm going to kill that Lord, and then that's it. And then all of my creatures are still in burn range, even if I play another Lord. And which is the important part of the math of the burn versus Merfolk matchup. Again, the number 3. All Merfolk Lords only pump up +1/+1. So guess what? Most Merfolk are still in the range of burn. And burn can definitely kill us by being very selective about how they target our creatures. Again,
if I can take you off of your main game plan for 2 to 3 turns for enough time to hold back a couple of cards and just come to critical mass in my hand, that's what I want. I want you to sit back because you're scared of trading, not beneficially. And that just gives me, 2 turns gives me a chance to draw another 6 to 8 damage.
Yeah, and I'm saying this as somebody who's played a bit of Pauper Burn. Your life is more of a resource than in Merfolk. So Merfolk, obviously, we're about building critical mass, about blocking critical plays with force of wills. But the biggest thing in burn is, like, I can take a few hits. Because guess what? In the next turn or two, I'm drawing 3 to 6 to 12 damage, and it doesn't matter that I took 18 damage this turn.
Yeah, I would rather you swing in all the way so that I can get in with my critters, but you're going to end up leaving a couple back. And at that point, I can then use the spells in my hand to get my creatures through.
Which is another point that I want to speak to on the Merfolk side. Being selective about how you attack against burn. So the problem with attacking against burn is burn does something which Merfolk desperately wants to do, and that's lives on your opponent's end step. So Merfolk has been able to do that kind of with Aether Vial, and even more with Merfolk Trickster and a Harbinger of the Tides a little bit. And that's we don't want to play during our main phase. So burn thrives on its opponent's main phase, I think. And that's just me doing a radical study on the outside of burn looking in, is like, oh, well, burn can just wait, and it's not the technical, like if you think of like Chandra, who's the stereotypical red planeswalker, is like burn. No. Wait till your opponent's end step. Just wait, just wait a little bit, and you've got that spot. So burn definitely has the advantage in that area to Merfolk. That doesn't mean that, I honestly don't think that the Merfolk versus burn matchup is particularly favorable, but it definitely is a matchup that is winnable for either side.
Depending on what you're sideboarding in Merfolk, you probably have a slightly better post board game, because part of it is that your Ensnaring Bridge has kind of fallen out of favor with burn for good reasons, because it's a 3-drop, and if I'm trying to save my rear end on a 3-drop, then I've already lost. In a lot of cases, if it's not actually clearing the board, where I'm probably going to end up with some Pyroclasm or Volcanic Fallout in there, but I think post board you're probably a little bit better, because you're probably going to have something for me, right?
All right, so one of the biggest cards that I pull from the sideboard against burn, and honestly against a lot of decks in Legacy, is Flusterstorm. Because Flusterstorm is just one of those, burn. I'm not going to say that burn lives off the top deck, but it definitely, once burn gets to 3 mana, they're kind of done. And so Flusterstorm can definitely be a way to go, no, for sure. Like, so it's like they go lightning bolt, and then you go Flusterstorm, and then they just can't pay for it. So Flusterstorm is definitely a huge deal against burn. I definitely bring Flusterstorm in all the time.
Yeah, and that's nice, especially if it's like 3 mana down, playing off the top of the deck, hard cast light up the stage. That's really disappointing.
Yeah, and honestly, because my sideboard is so I generally go 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Relic of Progenitus, which Relic I kind of bring in against burn just because of the flashback burn spells. But honestly, that's not a 100%. Like not all burn decks play the what's the flashback burn spell? For some reason, I'm not thinking of it.
I don't play it.
Yeah.
What you would get out of Relic with my deck on the board is taking value from Grim Lavamancer, and that's about it. Exquisite Firecraft. If you pop Relic, then it will make Firecraft counterable.
Okay, well that's fair. So the rest of my sideboard is Sorcerous Spyglass, which doesn't do anything against burn.
Someone tried to cast it on me and say like Eidolon of the Great Revel, and I was like, all right, it's a triggered ability.
Yeah, it does stop. It does stop Grim Lavamancer. But Grim Lavamancer is not the focus.
Lavamancer and Sunbait Canyon are the only things you're going to hit with Spyglass or Pithing Needle abilities.
Yeah. So the rest of it is 2 back to basics, which again you're only playing 4 of the Horizon lands. So you're not. We're not hitting anything that's particularly relevant in the burn matchup. To Dismember, again, I think the amount of life lost versus like killing a Taylor Swift spear is not worth it.
Maybe if you're on the play and you get a Goblin Guide on turn 1, but it seems bad.
Still,
4 life in a card. I would love for you to do that.
No, yeah, and that's the burn. That's the burn player's dream, is that your opponent deals 4 damage to themselves. Like that's totally fine. They're not, the burn player. I honestly, if I did that against you, I could see you visibly laughing at me, like not even in a pity way, but just because you're a jolly guy. Like you'd just be like, okay.
Yeah. All right.
And the last is Venser Shaper Savant, which I could see, but because obviously it puts a spell back in their hand, but against burn, what's that?
Good for Fire Blast. Make me sacrifice 2 mountains and then pop it back in my hand where I can't cast it again.
Yeah, but that's basically the only spell that I would be like, okay, this has to happen now, because like everything else, it's like you're like lightning bolt, and I'm at 3 life, and then I go Fencer, Shaper Savant, and you're like, okay, lightning bolt. It's just that burn is too efficient for Venser, I think. So obviously, I think that the Merfolk burn matchup is okay. It's definitely not favorable for either side. I'd say it's like a 50-50 split, because burn handles creature decks well.
Mm-hmm. And looking at it again, I think probably if I'm going up against you with my current setup, or the way that I'm going to change it after thinking about it after the last Friday night, I'm probably bringing in a couple of Smash.
You can say after talking to a Merfolk master, it's okay.
Well, I made some changes just to see how I liked it, and I did not like it, so I'm going to change it mostly back. I think, I don't know how many non-basics you're running, so it's possible that I bring in some Price of Progress, but it looks like I would probably bring in a couple of Smash to Smithereens just to get some extra value out of killing an Ether Vial, Volcanic Fallout, and some number of Price of Progress. And one thing I want to say is, like, against a deck like this that's got files out there, game 2 I'm probably bringing out, unless I'm on the play, I'm probably bringing out Eidolons, and Smash and Volcanic Fallout, or whatever kind of creature strategy you've got, whether it be Searing Blood or something like that. That's probably what's coming in. So you'll want to be prepared for that. You probably won't have to play around Eidolon in a game 2 if you're on the play. So you can go, you can play a little bit longer game without having to worry about taking damage from it, or you can go a little bit more hardcore. But there's a good chance that whoever you're going up against is going to be bringing in something for creatures, whether it be a damage-based sweeper, or whether it be occasionally you'll find people with Ensnaring Bridge in that board, and that's real nice against Merfolk.
Oh yeah, Ensnaring Bridge is definitely a trait for any for any non-Merfolk player. So the biggest thing that I want to transmute to our Merfolk players is to be to prioritize hands with Chalice of the Void, because you can really get burn players on Chalice of the Void. Not saying that it's a you're gonna auto win games where you can Chalice on one, but it definitely hampers burn players a lot. So Chalice and Vial are definitely big sticking points for going, okay, this is a keepable hand versus I should ship this.
Now that does depend on whether you're on the play, whether you're on the draw, and whether there are already creatures on the ground. I have surprised some people with Swift Spears on the ground. Hard casting, for example, hard cast a Rift Bolt to kill a blocker, then swinging in, and then Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt. They all get countered, but they all pump the Swift Spear. And if that's lethal, then that's lethal. So realize that even if the spell is countered, they still get prowess triggers. Additionally, while the one mana burn spells are the most efficient, with the exception of Goblin Guide or whatever else, they're not necessarily going to be the most effective. So you Chalice on one, you can still get eaten up by Flame Rift, by Price of Progress. I can still suspend that Rift Bolt. It's a 3-drop. Yep. Exquisite Firecraft is finding its way into more main decks. So you're not turning off as much. You're turning off about as much total damage as you would with 2-drops. But the 2-drops sometimes are more versatile.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I didn't mean it to be like this is the end all. Like if you have a
Sure.
chalice on one, you're going to, because I've definitely I've lost to burn players with chalice on one for sure. But it definitely it forces the burn player to definitely put a lot more mental energy than they thought they would have
Mhm.
to.
Oh, I don't love
And
it.
no, it's not a happy thing when your lightning bolts don't do anything. But again, like you said, once the burn player has a few Swift spears and maybe a goblin guide or two down, it kind of doesn't like it's not as hampering as you would think it would be.
Mhm.
But so again, I think that the Merfolk versus Burn matchup is fairly even in Legacy at least. I think I've won probably as many games as I've lost to Legacy Burn. What do you think?
I mean, either player can win it. It's all other things equal. It's probably somewhere near even. Um, but if one player is obviously more experienced on their deck, that player is probably going to get it because they're going to know the ins and outs. If somebody's really experienced in that particular matchup, they might be able to bait you a little bit better. But yeah,
See,
if you know your business, you can win.
see, you heard it here first. If you play against Travis Nance, who's a master baiter,
That's true.
you will, you have a good chance of losing to his baiting. It's a great matchup. I definitely have a lot of fun playing against Burn because it's definitely something that takes a lot of mental energy on my part, and it's like, oh, what's coming next, and you kind of hope to get them on the back foot, and because getting Burn to where they have to be playing off the top of their deck is kind of where you want them, where so that's a lot of fun. To finish off the episode, obviously we do the opening hand, which makes no sense because we should do that at the beginning. But I like to do it because we can talk about it in the context of the subject matter of the episode. So against Burn, and again, we're on the draw because this is an odd episode. We have a hand here from user. Uh, who is the user that we pulled this from? Fnatic, who top aided a legacy event right after Throne of Eldraine premiered. So I want to discuss this 7 cards with Travis about, like, let's say we were playing against Burn and we had this hand as an opening hand. Would this be a keepable hand against Burn? So our hand is 2 islands, 1 Cavern of Souls, 1 Mutavault, 1 Daze, 1 Lord of Atlantis, and 1 Brazen Borrower. So again, we're on the draw. We're on the draw against Burn. Honestly, I'm not so sure about this hand. Having Daze is fine, and obviously, if I was sitting against a random player at an SCG event or a Grand Prix, I wouldn't know what my opponent was up against. But if, let's say, randomly I was assigned against Travis, this hand seems too land heavy for me.
If that Mutavault were a Mishra's Factory and could pump itself and trade favorably with a Goblin Guide, it might be a different case. As is, I think you pitched this one. Brazen Borrower is fun. It gives you, I mean, you can play it twice, so you're almost acting like an 8-card hand. But it's kind of tempo
I said
negative.
8 cards, no 7 cards, because
Yeah.
it is in effect 2 cards, but how much tempo do you get from bouncing a Goblin Guide? Like
Exactly.
how much
It's
tempo?
kind of tempo negative,
Yeah, exactly, against Burn,
which is a great
especially.
goth band.
Tempo negative, new band name, I call it. But yeah, like, honestly, I agree with you. I think this is too land heavy in the spells that we have. I mean, Daze is great against Burn, because obviously slowing you down in any capacity is what any deck needs to do to beat you. But just the rest of the cards don't sync together very well.
Yeah, you need more meat on the table.
And just as a addendum, the top card of our library would have been Silvergill Adept, which again, not great against.
If one of those islands had been that Silvergill Adept, we're having a different conversation.
For sure, I totally agree with that. If we went one island, one Mutavault, one Cavern, Silvergill, Lord, Daze, Brazen Borrower, I would be all for that hand. But just this just says, 4 lands is too many for Legacy to me. And honestly, you would just take over with whatever your hand would be. Against Burn, it's too much.
Yeah, I like killing a Mutavault with a Lightning Bolt. It's a good tempo move.
Yeah. No, it's totally fair. And Brazen Borrower dies to Bolt. Lord of Atlantis dies to Bolt. Mutavault dies to Bolt as a creature. So it's this hand is just too slow against Burn, I think. Thank you so much, Travis, for coming on the show. I appreciate you being a part of the Fishin and Merfolk Podcast family now. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Again, you can find me as @BeardedSkeptic on just about everything, especially recently playing on Twitch, doing some Borderlands and some Magic Arena. Whenever I'm streaming Arena, I usually try to open some kind of interesting physical pack on stream. I won't be opening one this week, but I have some really weird ones to show off, so that should be interesting.
Awesome. If I can publicly bait you into coming to help me fix my PC, I can have some. I have some physical packs for you to open that I can donate to your stream. But you can find me personally as not Kody Smith on Twitter. You can find the other co-hosts of Fishin and Merfolk Podcast. You can find Dorian at Crinkle Biscuit on Twitter, and that's Crinkle Biscuit with a K. And then you can find Matt at Matthew Caudill 8, mostly talking about Maryland sports, but often talking about Magic the Gathering in general. If you have a long-form question, you can feel free to email us at fishcastmtg@gmail.com. Our cover art was made by Tessa and Hunter Pruitt, and our logo and stream art was done by Ishton on Twitter, who is amazing and awesome and has done many, many, many amazing Magic the Gathering themed art. Our video intro for our YouTube videos was done by Jake Boss MTG on Twitter. And if you like what we're doing here, please rate and subscribe in the Apple or Google Play podcast apps, as well as find us on Patreon at patreon.com/fishcastmtg, where for $2 a month, which is the cost of a kid's meal at Carl's Jr. if you have a $2 off coupon, you can support us. You can support us and get the show a few days early and ad-free, and we definitely appreciate your support in that way. Again, Travis, you were a great guest. Thank you so much for discussing the ins and outs of Burn with us. It was a definite pleasure. I definitely love hanging out with you, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
All right, and thank you everybody for your time, and we will see you all next week.